joined now by Cape Breton Eagles General Manager Jacques Carrière. Thought it'd be good to catch up with Jacques after the trade period. Jacques, what are your thoughts on the season for your team thus far on the ice?
You touched on the trades. We didn't want to cheat the cycle. Last year being a year that we thought we were going to go hopefully all the way to the Mem Cup. Got cheated out of that by COVID. Totally crazy when we had to announce to players that we weren't going to play the playoff last year. It was one of the worst days in my life, actually. I think that team believed that we could do good things on the ice and that we would go far in the playoffs. When we started this season, we decided we're going to give ourselves till Christmas to reassess things. With the fact that we're still full-blown in COVID, we don't know when we're playing. It was kind of tough before Christmas, and then our Christmas break was extended. The hockey committee, we decided that we were going to recuperate some of the assets that we had paid last year and get a younger team and start the cycle.
Your top line gets traded out, but your top defense pairing stays in. I'm sure you probably had offers for Jared Baker and Nathan LaRose. Walk us through the decisions as to who to move and who not to move.
There were some talks. It was kind of a very difficult trading period just because of the mere fact that we didn't know when we were going to resume operation, whether there were going to be playoffs, whether there is going to be a Memorial Cup. Every day when you were talking to another team, you almost had to have a lawyer with you to decipher everything that was said with regards to clauses that wanted to be put in. It was pretty difficult. There were some offers for players, but last year in the first day, I can't remember how many players were traded, but we hit almost 2 or 3 weeks into the trading period this year, and we still hadn't reached the numbers of where we were the year before. So it was very slow. Teams didn't want to commit to anything. I'm literally not joking when I talk about lawyers being present. There were no lawyers, but that's how I felt every time that we were talking to someone.
You do bring in a few older guys with some experience, Dawson Stayers, who's 18, and Mark Rums, who's 19. How important was it to bring back some older talent in order to stay competitive in the second half?
It was very important, and you touched on Baker and LaRose on the back end. We have some kind of a commitment to those guys and to the team that we still want to stay competitive. And if we would have kept a young team with a bunch of 18, 17, and 16 years old, it's kind of tough to win. You need to still have some talent and still have some leadership and some older guys that are going to show the young guys the way.
Did you have it set which pieces you wanted to move, or was it just a case of move where there was value? How did that all play out?
We had some kind of a picture drawn, but it was definitely very tough because one player was almost traded and somebody else on another team would become available and then this would fall apart and then we'd be back to the drawing board. The main pieces of the puzzles from other teams that were available, the Bocage, the Gay, didn't move till the last 3-4 days of the trade period. We knew that the other teams were on those players and this was probably their number one target. That made things even more difficult.
Not all the feeder leagues have been playing. You look at a guy like Kiefer Lyons, who's leading the New Brunswick league in scoring, and then your prospects in Quebec, for the most part, aren't playing. How do you gauge the progress of the guys that aren't in Eagles uniforms that are still part of the organization?
I don't have the answer to that, to tell you the truth, Pat. However, what I can say is that we're very satisfied with what our prospects have done, with the amount of hockey they've been able to play and practices, talking to their coaches. Having said that, we think that guys like Kiefer Lyons, Colby Huggan, Kean Bell that played this weekend with us and scored his first goal, these guys are high prospects for us. The unfortunate thing is this year we only had 34 players in camp. We didn't get to see all of the players we wanted to see in training camp. With COVID and whatnot, we were limited in the numbers of players that we could bring to camp. Quite a few of our draft picks from last year didn't attend training camp. But we're very happy with what these guys are delivering, and we're looking forward to see them at the next training camp.
Not only is it your current prospects that you're not getting to see, that's the bulk of this upcoming draft. Have you had a conversation with scouts as to how you're going to approach that, particularly with the Quebec kids, because you might not get a chance to see them at all?
I am an eternal optimist. I think that there's going to be some resumption of play in the Quebec Major Hockey League. I think they will offset everything to the months of hopefully late March, April, May, and then I'm hearing that they're planning for playoffs in the Midget AAA in Quebec in the way of a round-robin weekend super tournament around the 11th, 12th, 13th of June. This would likely push back our draft, but nothing's official on this. These are rumors that I've heard. I'm really hoping that we get to see these guys because we have some video sampling and some we've seen in action, but very short sample, all of them at the start of the season. And as we all know, These guys don't score high points with us at the start of the season. We want to see them throughout the whole season, and more importantly, at the end of the season and in the playoffs, so they can show us that they can be true Eagles. We have quite a bit of video on the Maritime players, and we still conduct scouting meetings with the scouts and try to build our list as best as we can. Maritime is perhaps a little bit easier because we do have some viewing. In Quebec, we have some viewings that date back to August and September. Some of the teams have started to put their practices on the web. But like I said, I'm an eternal optimist. I hope that things will resume in Quebec.
Everybody knows about this by now. The situation that happened with Mikhail Nazovkin ends up getting denied into Canada, along with a number of other Russians who were trying to come to the queue. Walk us through what happened there, and is there any worry in the queue that there might be trepidation from these players to want to come back next year now that they've had this kind of unusual experience?
I think that's going to be on an individual basis in regards to where the players are within their respective countries, Russian, Belarus, as to whether they want to come back next year. Michael Nazovkin wants to be an Eagle. You can't even fathom how much he wants to be an Eagle. I talk to him on a weekly basis. I've talked to him, of course, since he's been denied entry, even more frequently. That day, I started texting with him and talking to him from the early morning here in Canada, where it was morning in Europe. We were afraid of step one, which was getting him to Canada, so getting him to fly from Moscow to Paris and then Paris to Montreal. We had a 20-page package for him with quarantine plan, his IIHF transfer, and all that stuff, everything that would get him into Canada. We were convinced that we had a pretty good package in place, and that would get him in. I had shared my package with Gatineau, and Gatineau had gotten a player, Kashnikov, with the exact same package. So he flew Moscow, Paris, that went well. Paris, Montreal, that went well. And that's when he got to the immigration status in Canada. They decided not to let him in. So he was in Canada for like 2 hours and 10 minutes. I was a mere 20 meters away from him. One door was separating us. Crushing for him, crushing for us as well. He still wants to come. If borders were to reopen and allow him to come and play for the rest of the season, we have to remember that he would have to self-isolate, quarantine himself for 14 days. There's a new government plan now that's taking effect on the 22nd, where people have to confine on their own dime in hotels chosen by the federal government. So he would have, depending how long that lasts, he would also have to go through that. We definitely have a commitment from him that he wants to play with us next year. This season, we were able to defer the IIHF transfer. So he's been able to play with an MHL team. He was the youngest guy on his team. He was able to play some games out there. Our fingers are crossed as to what's going to happen. But as soon as the border opens, we'll see what we do, depending when it is. I expect that he would be an Eagle next season.
You're also expecting, I'm guessing, that Ivan will come back once the border opens up.
It's the same plan with Ivan. The only difference between the two is that Czech nationals don't require visas. It's a little tougher to get them in. Mikhail Nazovkin has a visa, so there's a bit more weight to the visa. Czech nationals like Ivan right now, if he was to come to Canada, only comes with a visitor status because he doesn't require a visa. But it's the same thing. Once border reopens, we'll put everything to bring him in. And Ivan has made it clear that he wants to come back next year. I was hoping that this year would be a big season for him. I think the NHL teams really missed him last year. We had a good team, so it was tough for him to showcase his top offensive potential. So I was hoping that this year he would step in a big offensive role for us. Who knows, maybe get drafted this year at 18 after being looked over his first year. Comes back next year as a 19-year-old. He was one of the last guys on the national team this year for the Czech Republic. So next year we'll probably see him at the World Junior Championship. It could be a big season for him. He's going to play to get a contract, to get an invite, or maybe even to get drafted in the NHL. So big year for him. It will be tremendous for our team to have him back.
Lastly, I wanted to ask what you foresee in the future for this team, and particularly the goaltending situation, because you acquire Remy de La Fontaine. William Gamard would be eligible to be 20 next year, and you'd have two very highly drafted goaltenders coming to camp. Any idea how you think that'll play out going forward, and how competitive do you think this team can be in the future?
One thing I'm going to say is that when we decided to trade Ryan Francis and Felix Lafrance, we knew we were losing some big guns up front with regards to offensive input, and we definitely wanted to try to bring some offensive input. That's what I worked for. I tried to bring someone offensive in lieu of those guys. In Francis, I was able to get Dawson Stairs. In Felix Lafrance, there wasn't much as far as offensive talent that we were high on. Then one younger defenseman that we liked that they made unavailable So at that point, Remy de La Fontaine was one of our targets. He was a guy that was very high on our list at the draft. And then when we picked Nicholas Rucha at the draft in the first round, he sort of fell off our list. It wouldn't have made sense for us to pick another goalie at that time in the second round. We had some other areas of our depth chart that we needed to address, so he fell by the wayside. When I started talking with Chicoutimi, he became a targeted player. Everything will be up in the air next year with regards to goaltenders. We'll see how Will Grimard does from now till the end of the year. We'll readjust when the season is over.
Great insight on everything Eagles related, Jacques. We look forward to seeing how it plays out with the team going forward. Best of luck. Thanks for this.
Thank you very much, Pat.
That's Eagles General Manager Jacques Carrière joining us at the intermission. You're listening to McDonald Auto Hub, Cape Breton Eagles Hockey, 1270 CJCB.